It's a new season of Make It Artsy. Hi, I'm your host, Julie Faith Ann Balzer, and it's only natural that we look outside for inspiration. Whether testing your powers of observation for patterns, observing the bees or other living creatures, or just looking at elements of nature like water, rocks, and rust, it's all about nature this season. First, I have a new stenciling technique using ink pads featuring an image of nature, of course. Then meet Joe Rotella and foil flowers that are made realistic by the patterns within the petals. Next up, Kat Kerr designs a pattern bracelet using modeling material. Finally, we introduce you to our resident artist for the next 2 seasons, Tori Wires. She'll be back every other week bringing the outside in as inspiration for your sketchbook. There will be 7 lessons beginning with Look Closely. You can find beautiful colors, textures, and shapes in objects from nature if you slow down and look closely. That's all today on Make It Artsy. I'm Julie Faith Ann Balzer, your host for Make It Artsy, and we begin with bringing the outside in and a stenciling project with a unique twist. So, I love stenciling, but sometimes I want it to be neat. And so what I've made is, you can see this book page tree. And the way that we're doing the stenciling is with ink pads. So a couple things to know about stenciling with ink pads. The first is you get really super crisp lines, which is absolutely fantastic. And it means you can even do things like a drop shadow. The next thing to understand is the more layers of ink that you add, the darker it gets. So I have an example here where I'm showing that, where I have the absolute just 1 layer of ink, and then we just keep adding and adding and adding. Now this is the exact same color, and you can see how much darker it gets with each layer. Now this is super easy to do. So I have a book page, I have a stencil, and then I have basically a sponge that's on the edge of this wooden tool, and for each color of ink pad and sort of general family, like all the browns would be the same, I'm gonna tap this onto my ink pad, and then I'm simply gonna rub in a circle. And again, if I put more layers, this will get darker. If I put fewer layers, it will be lighter. So it's entirely controllable and entirely up to you. The other thing is, what makes stenciling sort of messy and leads to that run under, which a lot of people don't like, is when you have something really wet. Because ink pads are essentially dry, you do not have to worry about that. The other thing is, remember that nature has so many wonderful blurred colors. So for instance, I'm going into the leaves and I'm not worried about it because I know that some leaves have brown in them, and that's totally fine. So I'm just gonna keep layering. Once I have finished with that, I'm gonna move on to my next color. And again, it's the same process. Now, the real reason that I have a different tool for each of these colors is because I'm incredibly lazy. And I don't want to have to clean the sponge after every single one. So if I generally do all my greens with the same sponge, or all my browns, or all my yellows, then I know that I don't have to do a lot of cleaning later on, which I really, really like. So I'm just going around and moving in a circle, hitting everything up. You can see that my left hand, or my non-dominant hand, is holding everything in place. If you don't want to do that, you can absolutely use some tape or something else to hold it down. My last color is going to be a yellow, because the yellow is going to really add a lot of depth. It's a small step, and at first you think maybe it's not making a difference, but what the yellow does is it makes all the other colors seem a little deeper, a little brighter, a little bit more. It's one of those extra things and a color trick that you can use in lots of different ways. So far, super easy. All I do is pull off my stencil and look at my beautifully stenciled tree. So you can see that I can pop this into a frame. It's a great way to decorate a card. And remember, the book pages come in lots of different colors. I've used one that's kind of yellowed, but you can also use something that's very pure white. You can use something that's meaningful, maybe a page that has something about a tree when you stencil a tree on it. But this is a fun technique, and I hope that you'll give it a try. Joe is next with foil flowers.